Hey, Stanley from projectmanaverse.com, and in this video, I'm going to give you 10 project management terms that you need to know. So I'm going to jump straight into the video. Term number one is BAU, or business as usual. You will hear this a lot, not just in the project management world, but in the business world in general. And business as usual is reserved for everyday operational business processes that happen every day, and they don't really have an end date. They're going to keep going. It's what you do to keep the business going. It's very different from project work, where project has a specific start date and end date, and it's a temporary structure. BAU is more about things that are always done every day. It's what people do, and there's no end date in sight. But you'll hear BAU a lot, BAU activity. As a project manager, you'll often hear when you need people in the business, you need their support on the project. You'll hear them saying, "Oh, sorry, I'm too busy with my BAU." That's a common expression you'll hear as a project manager. That's term number one. Term number two is route to live, or RTL. And route to live describes basically your test environments and how you're going to get the code of the thing that you have built into the live production environment. There'll often be a sequence of test environments that you need to go through, starting from the dev environment or the development environment where the initial development is done, to a low-level test environment, to a more advanced tester environment, to a pre-production environment that's very much like production or the live environment, but not quite as good. And then you go into production. But there'll be some kind of governance that says if you make a change to this product, you have to make that change initially in the dev environment, develop it there. You need to get it through that entire route to live, so everything is married up before it goes to the production environment. That's number two. Number three is prod, or production, and it's very similar to what I just said before in regards to environments. Production is your live environment. You're watching YouTube right now. You're in the YouTube application. You're in the production environment of the YouTube application, the environment where things go live. There'll be test environments that sit beneath that. That's what the production environment is. Number four is Big Bang. Big Bang. So this is to do with the way that you implement or go live with your project. There's usually two choices, especially if your IT project has lots of deliverables. Let's say, for example, you're doing a database upgrade and a software upgrade as well. Now, you could either phase that, so you could do the database upgrade first and then do the software upgrade afterwards, or you can do everything at once in the same window on the same weekend usually. And that's what we call Big Bang, when we do all the elements of the upgrade or the project in one go. We put everything live in one go. The alternative, as I say, is to phase it and do it and stagger it and do a bit in production and then another bit in production and stagger it throughout the months. Okay, next we have SOE, or schedule of events. Schedule of events usually is reserved for the actual implementation of your product, the go live implementation, and it's a sequence of all those tasks and activities that have to happen to get your code and your product into the live environment. You can use SOE for other terms as well, other parts of the project, but I don't usually hear it being used in other phases of the project. It is usually reserved for the actual implementation phase of the project and your ultimate go live. Okay, next we have FOV, or first occurrence validation. First occurrence validation is a kind of testing, but it's not done in test environments. It's done in the production environments, and it's basically a check to ensure that once you put your product live into the production environment, it's working as it should do. And that's what we call first occurrence validation. If you have a list of processes that this product is supposed to do, what you're doing is checking the first occurrences work. So the first time you do that process in the live environment, has it worked? Tick yes. That's what your FOV is, or your first occurrence validation. So make sure you've got a bit of a checklist when you go live of all those key business processes to make sure they're working in the production environment, not just the test environments. Okay, next is IRR, or Implementation Readiness Review. And this feeds into the similar conversation about SOE. It's to do with getting ready for your ultimate go live. But the IRR is more on the business side. And it's, again, some kind of a checklist to ensure that you're ready to go live, that you're ready to do your implementation. And that's why we call it an implementation readiness review. And again, you can have various degrees of detail in this IRR. Usually they are quite detailed. They're in a big document and you've got loads of It's a huge checklist to make sure that you've thought about all the impacts to the business and everyone is ready to go live. It's a really good control, because if you can go through that entire checklist and make sure everything is ticked, then you know you're going to be ready to go live. And usually you have IRR reviews, or implementation readiness reviews, 2 weeks before the go live, 1 week before the go live, and then say 4 weeks before, 6 weeks before, 8 weeks before, and you keep going back. And you can start these checkpoints as early as you want to, really, but you don't want to go right from the start of the project. Probably a few months away from the project, depending on how big the project is. Get these reviews set up, and you get your stakeholders together, and you go through this checklist, and you start tracking every single step. Is it red, amber, green? What's the next step to getting it done? And that gives you a really good indication and health bar as to whether you're ready to go live with your project or not. Okay, next we have environments. This ties back to what I was saying about testing and production environments and test environments. Environment doesn't mean the environment as in the world, it means which system environment, which test environment you're talking about. It's to do with your software and your IT infrastructure. So you have a dev environment, a test environment, a pre-prod environment, and lots of environments in between there as well, and ultimately your production environment. Okay, next, number 9 is operating model. And operating model is a description of how your software or application or whatever you're building in your project is going to operate once it's gone live. So often you won't just have end users to an application. There'll be some kind of team that is actually looking after the operations of that application. So they need to do things to make sure it's running. Sometimes they have to receive data into the system or send data downstream. They'll need to do daily checks to make sure the data's come in, just to make sure everything is looking okay. There'll need to be some kind of process around change. If you want to change this application and make some tweaks on it, or change the reporting visuals on it, there'll be some kind of team that will look after that. And the operating model is a description of all those key processes that sit within that operational framework, and who's responsible for doing it, which people and what teams are responsible for doing it. It's quite a key element of project delivery that sometimes is forgotten about, but it is very important. So you want to make sure you've got a good operating model. So once the product has gone live, you know exactly how it's going to run, who's looking after it, and there's no ambiguity in that sense. Okay, the last one is support model, and it's quite similar to operating model, but it's more about the support of the product or the application if something goes wrong. So if an end user has an issue with the product and they're using it in live, what do they do? Who do they call? Who do they speak to? And which teams are responsible for what elements of the product? Who's going to be responsible for fixing the database if that goes wrong? Who's going to be responsible if an end user can't get access into the system, or struggling with a they think they found a defect? There needs to be some kind of support model in place. If it's like 2 in the morning and someone's struggling with the system and it's really important, they need the system for some kind of critical process that might impact customers, they need to be able to call someone, and there needs to be a support model in place which clearly defines roles and responsibilities in terms of who's supporting what area of the application or what process of the application, and how often they're available, and what's the second line of defense if they're not there, and when they call, who do you call next? All that kind of stuff goes into the support model. It's a very important part of project delivery. Okay, that is your 10 terms. So I'm going to wrap up the video there. Please hit the like button, because it will help with the algorithm. And if you want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to the channel. And until next time, please take care.